you just have to make sure that you choose the philosophy, the vision that you want. And I'm totally fine with that. But if you're frustrated saying, man, I've done all this clinical training, I've done the Spear, the Coyce, the Dawson, the Pankey, all of it, and I'm at this level, but I'm at this price, something's got to give. And you can't, what with the three triangle, right? Customer service, excellence, and cheap prices. You can't have all three. Yeah. You can only pick two. So that, I think that's where you have to boil it down to as a provider. What do you really want to be? And then give up on one of those things because you can't be both.
This is Growth in Dentistry, a dental intelligence podcast where we ask the question, what does growth in dentistry look like to you? I'm Katie Polson, a dental hygienist and your host.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. This is a Growth in Dentistry podcast where we ask the question, what does growth in dentistry mean to you? My name is Steve Jensen, a total data nerd, and I am your host. Super excited for the episode that we have today to bring Eric Vickery on. We are going to talk about a very relevant topic, so hold your horses. We're going to jump in soon enough about insurance and our relationship with insurance companies. For those who are first-time listeners, just so you know, our goal is to help dental practices be successful, work more clever, not smarter, not harder. If you are enjoying the podcast and a longtime listener and haven't yet, please rate and review the podcast. That helps us get this out in front of more and more dental professionals to make sure that the message is getting out there. For those who haven't engaged with dental intelligence before, we always run a special deal just for you guys. If you'll jump on and give us a demo and check us out, we'll give you a $50 gift card for every time someone new comes in and does that. The link to go ahead and request that is get.dentalintel.com/podcast. And we'd love to show you what we're up to. So today, without further ado, I'd love to introduce Eric Vickery. Eric is the president of coaching at All-Star Dental Academy. He has been consulting and managing practices since 2001. So he's been in the biz for a long time, over 300 clients. And one of his specialties among many is navigating the insurance relationship with dental practice. So Eric, thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's Eric Vickery and why do you love dental? And tell us a little bit about All-Star Dental as well.
Yeah, why do we love dentistry so much? That's a great question. Thanks, Steve, for having me. It's a pleasure being on here. And hopefully today I provide great value for your listeners on just evaluating the whole in-network, out-of-network thing. It's a very, very hot topic right now with clients. I've been helping dental offices since 2001, like you said. I've probably over the years helped somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 offices get out of network with one insurance plan or all, depending on their stage of career and where they're at, and never more per year, calendar year, than the last 3 years. It has been an explosion, a mass exodus of insurance participation at all different levels for dentists, and I think that's because the inflation. I think that's because the surplus that we have with a high demand right now, high surplus, and people are going, why am I doing this? And we'll get into that. My very, very first client I helped get out of network with Delta Dental was my father-in-law, whose practice I managed in Maine from 1998 to 2004. That was my 6 years I worked with him. If he's listening, I just waited till I got fully vested. So no, he was a real proponent of me becoming a coach. He knew that's where I wanted to go as my father-in-law. And so got my start in dentistry with Dental Boot Camp, Walter Haley, Suzanne Black. They really gave me my start back in 2001 and been doing this ever since. Managed another practice during the downturn in 2010, 11-ish. I helped a client that was really struggling. I had the bandwidth of about 15 hours a week, managed another practice during that time while I managed my clientele. And then, in 2014, back at it, full swing. And I carry a load of about 70 clients at a time. Our team, is over 100 at All-Star Dental Academy. We coach offices all over North America. I literally have coaches from Alaska to Maine, coach in Alaska and a coach in Maine, and everywhere in between. And there's a great team, handpicked, that I've trained over the years that I love working with. And so they're truly all-stars. So Alex Nottingham and Heather Nottingham are the founders of All-Star Dental Academy. And we're really in sync with customer service, case presentation, case acceptance, verbal skills, communication skills, understanding KPIs, and how to make sure the metrics match the communication or the systems. And so if the metrics are off, we can help alleviate the problem and make sure that the metrics match what you want them to based on this verbal skill or this system. That's pretty much it. Why do I love dentistry? I think loving dentistry is because, well, I was married into it, first of all. But
hey, I make the same joke. My wife's a hygienist, and I always tell everyone I fell in love with dentistry when I fell in love with my wife.
That's right. That's exactly it. Oh,
classic.
yeah.
That's
so great. Yeah, having a business degree, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was, I didn't know in what, I just wanted to know how to run a business, how to make it profitable, how to make sure it was successful. And for some reason, the dental lingo.
Classic.
Yeah, of course. The dental lingo, everything that I learned about in dentistry it just matches my communication style. I mean, we use DISC, we use strengths finders, we use emotional intelligence. These are all the things that we use, and we translate that into a sales environment. I think we'd all agree we're in sales, but in a way that is not pushy, in a way that I think dental team members really can appreciate and admire. And it's easily learned. So seeing other people succeed in that same process that I was a part of has been, I think, what drives my passion.
I love that. Well, Eric, we are so excited to have you on the show today. For those that didn't catch on, Eric has been around the block and been a partner with Dental Intel for years, Eric and the team. Data-driven, bring a systems approach that you can use repeatedly in the practice, and excited to hear what he has to tell us with insurance. Now, Eric, I'm going to share a couple of stats. When Eric and I were talking about what we're going to share, the ADA does some surveying every single month to understand what are some of the things that practices are thinking about and concerned about, especially the practice owners. And just for some context, one of the questions that they've been asking since January of this year is, first, has your practice dropped out of any dental insurance networks? And we have been consistently hitting around 16%. So 16%, we're only a couple months in, 3 months into the year, and 16% of dental practices are saying, yes, they've dropped out. And they're saying that and the next question is, okay, so you've dropped out of an insurance plan. What percentage of your patient base is represented by those insurance companies? And they're saying that that's about 17.5%. And then looking forward, they're asking the question, looking ahead for the next 3 months, does your practice intend to drop out of any additional insurance networks? 21% are saying yes, 58% are saying no, or they're not currently participating, so it's not really an option. And then 21% not sure. So this is definitely something that, like, at least about a fifth to a quarter of dental practitioners are considering this year. And then with that, like, not sure and kind of group, like, there's definitely a lot here. So Eric, I think for our listeners, this is something they'll be super interested in. So tell us, tell us kind of the basics and mechanics. Let's start at ground zero.
Yeah, let's do it.
How do I know when to engage with insurance, not to engage?
Sure.
And, maybe some different levels of participation. And then let's build from there on, how can we use data and some thoughts around building that relationship.
Yeah. And keep asking me questions, because I keep having thoughts based on what you're saying. And
cool.
that to me is fascinating, because that is literally the 80-20 principle. Yeah. 20% are in network, not thinking about getting out. 20% are in process of getting out, while 60% are very happy with where they are being out of network, that middle group. And so if you think about this, there's never been a better time to evaluate this and say, should I be a participating provider? So I think the first thing, it's funny, I speak at Louisville Dental School every year. And this one student, one year I was preaching it, talking about this, and should you really be in network or not network? And his question was, he was a senior, and he said, how can you bill insurance if you're not in network? And it hit me. All these years, this is probably 2 years ago. All these years, I've never thought about the dentist walking out of dental school not understanding that you don't have to be in network to receive the insurance benefits in your practice. So I thought, I need a way to explain how deep this goes. And, from dipping your toe into participation to completely being out. People throw I think we talked about this before. They throw the saying out there, fee for service, and that scares dentists away a bit. So I just want to create some clarity on this, understand the levels of participation. So at the deepest level is HMO, meaning I'm assigned to 1,000 patients from this insurance. I get paid every month, whether they come in or not. If they come in, I collect nothing. I don't want to see those patients, basically. I'm hoping they don't show up. I just get my check every month. I'm good to go. That's not really what happens. You end up writing off your visits when they come in. All right. Not a lot play in that realm. That's not a big level. Now, in-network, and in-network has a couple different phases to it. So we would call it PPO, a PPO provider. Now, you could be Medicaid PPO provider. That would be one, which would have a huge percentage write-off, about 55%. You could be a Delta in-network provider, which would have Premier or PPO. Premier is about 25% and PPO is about 42% write-off rate. And then there's all the other insurances, Aetna, Emeritus, Guardian, Humana, you name it, right? United Healthcare, all these. Those on average about 42% write-off rate. Now, can
I stop you for a second and ask a question? So
sure,
we're on this kind
do.
of extreme side, like we're deep in it, HMO or some of these more heavily contracted PPOs, and a lot of dentists are enrolled in these programs. They're participating. So why would someone even participate in the first place?
Yes,
because so many people do. So like, why would if my write-off's so big, why would I even do it? Clearly, there must be a reason. Otherwise, people wouldn't do it.
Two things. One, butts in seats. And number two, I want to be able to answer this question correctly. When they call my office and say, do you participate with my insurance? Do you accept my insurance? I want my person to be able to say yes.
Yeah.
Well, that creates this barrier saying, well, with the right verbal skills, the right system that you put in place, you can actually say, yeah, we take all insurances. So we'll get to that part. Okay, but yeah, the question becomes, why would I see?
Because I'm hearing 40% write-off, 50% write-off, and I'm like, why would you
do that? And here's the kicker.
And
here's the real kicker. So when you go HMO, PPO, then you go out of network, right? That's the next level. Out of network, meaning you're my patient, Steve. You come in, I file your claim for you with Aetna, and Aetna pays me money. Now, here's the funny part, okay? I'm going to charge you $100 for a pro fee, let's say. Okay, that's low, but let's say that's the round number, $100. When I'm in network, I will collect $58. I will write off $42 for you. You will pay nothing. When I am at a network, especially at a $100 rate, I bill Aetna. Aetna pays me $100. You pay nothing. I write off nothing. Is at a 42% raise without changing anything but my participation status.
Interesting.
Now, huge asterisk here. That applies to about 90% of the groups out there. So within Aetna, they've got thousands of groups. Let's say we're picking on Aetna. They're just A in the alphabet. Aetna, right? They have all these groups. 90% of them have in-network and out-of-network benefits. And all the administrators who are listening right now know when they go get, I'm old school, when they go get the facts back, breakdown of benefits, it'll show two columns. It'll say, here's your in-network, here's your out-of-network. And it'll say in-network, 100% for preventive, out-of-network, 100% for preventive. And there'll be a big asterisk on that. And that 100% coverage for out-of-network is based upon the insurance company's fees. MAC, UCR, whatever verbiage they're using. Well, as long as you're not charging $200 for a pro fee, you're going to be within that usual customary fee, whatever that is. And we do a fee analysis to say, hey, look, about this percentile is where you want to be. Now, so what that means is, why would I see 8 pro fees a day and get paid for 5 of them, right? Because that's what I'm doing right now. I'm writing off 40%, right? 40%. So, a little less than 5, get paid for 5. Why would I write off for 3? So I'm writing that off. That means 1 day a week I'm working for free. If you extrapolate it, I'm working 3 months for free all year long. I'm going to work for free. Painful. So why would I do that if the insurance company 90% of the time is going to pay me my fee? I'm willing to lose 10% of my people in that plan to get paid 40% more by the 90% who stay. So I'll just break that down real quick. So now, instead of seeing 8 pro fees a day, take 10% off of that. Now I'm going to see 7 pro fees a day and get paid for 7 instead of seeing 8 and get paid for 5. I got expenses for 8, getting paid for 5. I got expenses for 7, get paid for 7. That's where we're trying to help dentists understand you can be in that place and survive. And once that, I get it, that makes sense. Then they realize I don't have to be top level, shallow end fee for service. Fee for service means you pay me the $100, Steve. I'll bill the insurance and the insurance will reimburse you directly. Now, there are 2 insurances that you'd have to do that with, and that would be Delta and Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is a whole nother level of insulation and training that's provided to get out of that. But we're focusing on all the rest today. Also Medicaid, you're either in or out. There's no, hey, do this or do that. That's a totally different conversation. But for the rest of the insurances, which is probably anywhere from 25 to 35, maybe 40% of your practice is Delta, non-Blue Cross Blue Shield, those insurances are what we're talking about. Those you can be out of network with and receive the check. Now, to be in or to be out becomes the question. And that's where analysis comes into play. So we do a fee analysis, we do a percentage of your practice that is in these networks, and then we look at what is the write-off percentage for this practice. So let's say, I don't know, your network with Guardian, you're the dentist, Steve, and I look at your fees, we get your fees healthy, and we say, this is where your fees ought to be. Yeah, but this insurance is driving it down. We say, okay, this is the write-off rate you have, 42%, and you have 100 patients in Guardian. This is how much it's costing you annually to be in network with this. What would you like to do? And you get to make the decision. Well, I don't know, has anybody ever explained to you what overhead model, that percentage we want that to be? Has anybody ever talked to you about that number? Have you heard anything from other people? Probably, if you can have a 60 to 65, maybe 75% for a young dentist overhead model, which means your profitability is 25 to 40%. Well, if you're writing off 42%, what's your profitability?
Yeah, you're losing money.
Negative something. Yeah. And so only about 25% of dental practices are cash pay. Well, they're not going to be able to carry the weight to make you profitable. So if you're wondering why you don't have enough money left at the end of your month, this is probably why. You're working 3 months for free every year. So this is what gets me fired up, though. It gets me going. I just want people to understand this. That doesn't mean that you should be or you need to be out of network with insurance like this. There's a process to it.
Yep.
There's insulators that need to be in place to make sure that if you do it correctly, you do it safely, and your patients understand why you're doing it. And so that's the part that we, in our insurance freedom protocol, that's the part that we really want to focus in on with training and making sure that the whole team is trained and that all your ducks in a row. And
Eric, I want to ask you a question that I don't know that I prepped you well for, maybe a little, but I have a chance to talk with thousands of dentists all over the country. And this conversation is one that comes up often, kind of this desire to reduce their dependency on some of these insurance companies and not be as heavily enrolled in their PPO and HMO relationships. However, there's also this hesitation. I think some of them have heard a lot of the stats that only half of Americans are even engaging with their dentist. And I think there's also this kind of ethical fear where they feel like, should I really go out of network? Because I also don't want to if the whole market goes, out of network, then maybe we're pushing a bunch of people who would have seen the dentist in network, but now they might not see their dentist in network. And I think a lot of doctors and owners are kind of wrestling with this. They feel this ethical need to deliver dentistry to people who are in need, but then they also have this need to actually run a viable business, right? Because like you said, if the numbers don't work out, I could put myself in a position where I'm losing money, and that's also not viable. That business can't take care of my family or my team members and can't stay open long term. So therefore, then no one is going to get dentistry from me. So will you talk me through? Because I imagine, since you've helped over 100 dentists, that you've had that conversation a lot. How do you approach that conversation sensibly? And then maybe after this, we can talk through. Okay, so what are some of the first steps? I want to look on how to move forward with.
This is a philosophical side of things, and I'll tell a story first, and I'll get into my personal preference on this. I was talking to a dentist who's out of network with everything. That meant Delta, all of it, right? So with Delta, he was fee for service. Because the area he was in, there were no Delta providers. Delta approached him and said, "Look, if you come in network with us, we'll match your fee." He said no. He said no, and I said, "Dave, why would you say no?" He said, "Because here's what's going to happen. The next dentist that comes along, they're not going to get that fee. They're going to be 10% lower than my fee. And that's not fair to the next dentist." Wow. Okay. I hear you. Never thought of that. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, I want to be able to care for everybody. I want to have access to everybody. If you want to be that, then be that. But don't try to serve two masters here. You can't be Nordstrom at a Walmart price. You will not survive. Right? So just choose one path or the other. That's totally fine. I have clients that are in network. I just got off the phone with one in Utah, highly in network, producing $250,000 a month, writing off $75,000 a month. So if you're okay swallowing that pill and saying, "Yeah, I'm okay with that write-off," then I'm going to teach you how to make sure you make it profitable at that 40. They're at 44% write-off rate right now for their whole practice. So you just have to make sure that you choose the philosophy, the vision that you want. And I'm totally fine with that. But if you're frustrated saying, "Man, I've done all this clinical training. I've done the Spear, the Coyce, the Dawson, the Pankey, all of it. And I'm at this level, but I'm at this price, something's got to give. And you can't, what the three triangle, right? Customer service, excellence, and cheap prices. You can't have all three.
Yeah.
You can only pick two. So that, I think that's where you have to boil it down to as a provider. What do you really want to be? And then give up on one of those things because you can't be both.
Yeah, that's great. I think something I'll just note as I was listening, I thought to myself, I was having a conversation last night about just like the world in general. I was with some buddies, went to Topgolf, talking about life and business. And, one of the things that, I think so much of us in the modern world wishes that we wish we could make our choices and choose the outcomes of our choices, right? So in this example, we wish, well, I want to be able to like be in network with everyone and be profitable and not see a high volume of patients, right? Where every choice we make with insurance is going to have consequences. And I like what you said. So I could choose to be a more Medicaid heavy practice, and I could be profitable, but I'm going to have to give up some of the things on maybe the overhead side of things, or I'm going to have to see more patients. So maybe I'm not going to have the same flexibility to spend as much time with my patients as if I was less in network, but I'm still getting care, right? So there are going to be these gives and takes to the way we approach the business model. Always, though, I like your approach, Eric. It's, hey, philosophically, where do you want to land? And then let's look through the numbers to make sure that we can be profitable within that model for you and your practice. I think that's a very sensible way to approach that relationship.
Absolutely agree. Think about medical insurance, and the dollar amount people are paying for that and what they're getting back on that. And hospitals are still operating in the red. And the reason they stay afloat is grants. So you're not going to go, their PPO model, and take that into dentistry and say, we're going to assume a PPO model. Where's my grant money then? You're going to have to go do something different to figure that out. It's just not going to work. So that means shorter appointments, a highly trained team, cross-trained. Anybody can jump in at any time to make a difference for the patient. There's just so much that goes into that to making sure it works. Like I said, I've got clients that can make the PPO model work really well, but you can't tell me you're going to spend an hour and a half with a new patient. It's just not going to be the same. So completely agree.
Have you found, I'm going to ask this, and if you don't have a great answer, that's fine. Have you found that there's like a sweet spot where you can manage like your time? Because I know, I've talked to my fair share of Medicaid practices where they just feel like they're just churning, right? Like that's kind of the model, is high volume. And that can, depending on the personality, burn you out. So have you found there's like a sensible mix at some point where I can like slow down a little bit? I can still, make sure I'm serving enough patients. I'm getting some marketing kind of new patient value from being in network, like some organic growth that's coming to my practice from that, hopefully. Maybe that's just a perception where, anyway, I can be a network. Is there a sensible balance there, or is it really kind of depend on region?
So when we track number of new patients by source, and if they're a network, we'll put that source in there. And then we'll try to look at the percentage write-off and say, this is what's costing you to have that marketing source. And if that was your SEO provider, you'd have fired them because they're giving you this few number of patients because everybody's in
for a high write-off. Yeah,
everybody's sending out the same mailer. Everybody's doing the same SEO in that place because everybody's in network. And so, no, it's not a great marketing tool for you. And not to mention what type of patient is looking for you because you're in network. What are they looking for?
Yeah, they're looking for cost, right?
Cheap. Yeah, they're looking for something cheaper. So I don't think that that's the right way to view this or approach it. And what was the second part of the question?
So maybe I'll shift it this way. I'd love to hear, is there any stories where you're like, I really like the way we approached this particular practice? Give us some examples, how you approached, changing some of those insurance relationships. What was the result of that?
Sure, let's do that.
An example for the listeners. I think that'd be good.
Yeah. So, and back to the sweet spot, I think is what you're asking, the sweet spot. Yeah. That KPI for me is one patient per hour. That's my KPI. So I just got off a call with a client, like I was saying in Utah, and they were 240 hours of dental time that month with 350 patients. And they had way too 70 open hours on doctor time too. So when you look at that number, you go, oh my gosh, that's way too much. They're working too fast. Burnout's coming. Doctor has a pinched nerve. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. When you're churning like you're talking about, there's a higher risk of burnout because longevity of career, everything that you're going to do, it's going to eat it. Let alone when you start looking at, I'm getting Medicaid, I'm getting 55% write-off rate. I'm getting 45 cents on the dollar. I got to go twice as fast. So the sweet spot for me is 1 hour per patient. And our minimum is 500 net production, 500 per patient and 500 per hour because of that. That's the minimum.
Make a note. That's great.
And then hygiene, it's 175 per patient, 175 per hour. With inflation and people asking for more money and the cost of everything, we know these numbers have to be a minimum standard that we have to hit. So those are the insulators that have to already be in place before you even entertain, should I be out of network with something? So there is a pre-qualifier to being in the insurance freedom protocol. So story time, I'll just tell you the most recent one.
Great.
And this client in Michigan was out of network with everything except for the big insurance company in the room. Okay. We'll call them insurance company D just for our sake. ABC, D, we'll use D. And so when he came to me as a client, a fairly productive practice, $250 a month in production, one doctor, 4 hygienists, $250,000 in production, writing off $45,000 a month, which, revenue net at $200,000, you're thinking that's actually pretty good. I think it was around 188 was the average collection amount. And he wanted to add an associate. Well, to do that, that associate could not be at the same level of participation that he was with that insurance company. They would be at a lower level, which meant he was going to increase more write-off, which was going to devalue his practice as someday he went to sell this practice to this associate or create a partnership. So what he decided to do was, hey, I want to be out of network so that anybody that comes to work in my practice will be out of network with me. I'll do the heavy lifting first and we'll get there. So we went from writing off 42,000. We spent some time putting the insulators in place. We spent 6 months having our conversations with these patients one-on-one, and no letters are ever sent. And so we saw that go down to zero. That write-off went down to zero. Now you would think that would affect his production. It did. It went from 250 to 235. So he lost 15,000 a month in production.
And what happened with the write-offs? That's where we get.
And then he went from collecting 188 to collecting $40,000 more a month. He went to 1-to-1 ratio. Instead of producing 250, collecting 188, he went to producing 235, collecting 235.
Great.
That is what brings me, what gets me passionate and fired up. I'm like, it works. The system works. The buttons and levers and communication systems we put in place all work. And that insurance company is the most difficult to resign from because the check will not come to the practice. All those patients are now paying up front. By the way, 63% of his practice was in network with that insurance company. That was the other thing was freaking him out, was it just was growing and growing and growing.
And rightfully so. That number.
Yeah, it was overwhelming. And so did he lose some patients? Absolutely. But he's got great relationship with his patients. They love his team and his practice. Even some who have left, totally get it. They've come back because they've seen the grass isn't always green on the other side. We've instilled the membership plan in the practice. And it's working really well. He's now March of last, so he's a year into it, and added the associate, growing the practice. Actually, a hygienist moved away, went from 4 hygienists to 3, and is producing and collecting more.
Really? And has he not replaced only because the market's so tough, or just didn't need to?
Just didn't need to. It ended up being that the bandwidth just wasn't there, didn't need to do it. So, he has really had his business model and plan perfect. Now, I'll tell you one more story. So another office, not insurance company D, all the other ones. Okay. This is an office in Utah, and they were, when they came to me, sub $1 million practice, this is 3-4 years ago. This is pre-COVID. They came to me 2019, and both All-Star Dental Academy clients, both putting in systems, using the verbal skills that we teach, answering the phone the right way, doing all the things, following the KPI. We'll call him Dr. C. Look at Dr. C's numbers, and I go, okay, here's what's happening. Not only are you not producing at $1 million yet, we're going to get to those BAM numbers, but you're also writing off this number, this percentage. So it was all the other insurances, and all we did was break down into 3 different phases, all of those insurance companies he's with all of them, right? And so we just took 20% of those patients at a time, those groups, those insurance companies at a time, at a 6-month place over 18 months. They went from, I'll say sub, 75,000 a month. They're at 114 a month now and collecting all of that. Yeah. There's a little bit more because they're still in with insurance company D, but we'll set that aside for now. That'll be something we deal with down the line. Yeah.
And And the D company rhymes with Melta.
You said it. So that's a tough one. That's a tough one, but I love the challenge. And I actually have a client in San Jose, California. We did all his analysis and said, I'm not recommending that you resign from insurance company D at this time. That's the only one in your network. And your write-off rate's 20% with them. It's 20, what was he? He's at 25% of his practice. Mm-hmm. And I said, and you only have one hygienist 3 days a week. There's not enough insulation there for me to say this is a smart business decision. The numbers aren't adding up for you. If you want to make it a philosophical decision and choice, I'm mm-hmm. with you, and I'm going to teach you how to do it. But the results will be, what they are in the end. And, dentists by nature, I think we're not taught how to be marketing savvy. And for some reason, he's in a building with about 8 dentists. And that's all that's in there. So dentist walks in and says, oh, you're not going to take my insurance. I'm going to literally go next door, or next door to that, or next door to that. And so there's too many factors sometimes in a situation where we're saying, yeah, please don't resign from insurance. That's not the right call. That's the only one I can think of, though, over the last 23, I don't know how many, 22 years I've been doing this. So yeah.
Well, Eric, I think I'll share this. I think, we're coming up at the end of time here.
Okay.
And there have been so many good nuggets for listeners. Hopefully people's wheels are turning and considering, like, what do I want my relationship to be? And honestly, as I'm listening, it's like there are 2 things that are really important here. Like, one, you need to be able to get insight into the practice, right? So an analysis of some sort. Obviously, we can help get data with that. Eric and team can help you make sense of that. Understanding how profitable are you with the different insurance relationships? That's going to look at things like, what's your fee schedule with them? How many patients do you have in each and every single one of those? Because you might have some easy ones to, I don't know the best word, but slough off maybe, or transition out of, whatever.
Change your relationship with.
And could start getting some momentum. If there's anything I'm a believer of, it's that momentum brings more momentum, like if we can get movement happening.
Yep.
But at the same time, important to have a great plan. So I know so many people feel overwhelmed by the idea of actually taking that first step towards it. And that's where engaging with Eric and team can be so helpful, to have someone who's been there before, who's done it, who's seen it, who can talk you through a plan to really do this successfully, right? So get data, and then get someone, a mentor, a consultant that can help walk you through that. So Eric, go ahead and tell the listeners, what's the best way to get in touch with you if they wanted to start looking at how can they change up some of their insurance relationships? What's the best way to contact you and your team?
No, appreciate that. And I love your summary. You don't know what you don't know. And we're happy to look at it for you. Happy to go over that evaluation with you and see if this makes sense. It can take some time to figure out if it makes sense for you, because you may need some cogs, some wheels, some systems implemented, and then you go, yeah, this is right, let's start. But to know what those numbers are ahead of time really does help. So you could go to allstardentalacademy.com.
Great, which we'll put in the show notes for everyone.
Okay, you can do some research there. The co-founder, Heather Nottingham, loves to get emails from these sorts of things to figure out how best to take care of a client. So Heather at allstardentalacademy.com, you're welcome to email her and say, hey, heard Eric on the Dental Intel podcast, and have some questions about that. And then she'll just schedule a meeting with you at no charge and give you her time. She's amazing. She's got great customer service. She worked in a dental practice. She knows how the ins and outs of a dental practice. So she'll talk to you about what does your practice really require from us as far as support goes. If you just have an emailed question or something you want to reach out to me, you can as well. It's Eric, ERIC, at allstardentalacademy.com. And we're just here to help. We got plenty of support team to help you in any way we can. So,
well, I'd encourage guests, if you're on the fence, just do it. It sounds like, they're not going to charge you a penny to at least get on the conversation and talk through, is this going to make sense? I can help you wrap your mind around this project. So thank you, Eric, for joining us. I'll leave everyone with this. This has been a Growth in Dentistry podcast where we ask the question, what does growth in dentistry mean to you? So Eric, I want to hear your answer to that question. I'll give some special thanks and we'll call it a day. What does growth in dentistry mean to Eric Vickery?
Right now, at this moment, does insurance participation make sense for me, my business, my future? And do I really understand how my business is involved with insurance? And once you have clarity on that, you can decide which way you want to grow at that point, either fully in, fully out, a mix, whatever that is. But do you really have your finger on the pulse of your practice when it comes to participation?
I love that. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you, Eric, for joining us. This is an awesome episode. Special thanks to our marketing department and all the work they do to produce this and get this content out to the folks in dentistry. My name is Steve Jensen. Keep growing.